Bruce Schneier joins the Plutopia podcast this time. In his new book, Rewiring Democracy, he asks the questions, could propagandists use AI deepfakes to swing an election? Could police use AI facial recognition for mass surveillance? Could AI be used to perform the tasks of civil servants? To his dismay, he found the answer to these questions is probably yes.
What we want to say is AI is a tool. Right? It's a power-enhancing tool. In the hands of someone who wants better democracy, it's a tool for better democracy. In the hands of an authoritarian, it's a tool for better authoritarianism. And that's what it's going to do. And a lot of times, people confuse the evils of AI with the evils of the corporations controlling the AI. And I think that is the most important thing that I say to the people who say nothing's good here. I mean, you're right. In a lot of ways, nothing's good there. It's not the technology's fault. It's the fault of the monopolists, right? It's the fault of Silicon Valley. It's the fault of the white male tech billionaires. Right? That's where you want to address your solutions.
Welcome, everybody, to the Plutopia News Network podcast. Our latest episode today will feature John Lebkowski, as co-host with my other hosts, Scoop Sweeney and Wendy Grossman. And today we welcome Bruce Schneier, who's an internationally renowned security technologist. He's called a security guru by The Economist. He's the author of over a dozen books, and his latest book, written with data scientist Nathan Sanders, is called Rewiring Democracy: How AI Will Transform Our Politics, Government, and Citizenship. We're honored to have Bruce with us today. He's one of the preeminent voices at the intersection of security, technology, and society. His work has spanned like cryptography, privacy, trust, governance, and threats. But today we're going to talk about primarily AI and democracy, which I think is a fascinating subject. Welcome, Bruce.
Thanks for having me. I should tell you that The Economist degraded me recently. I was now called a security maven instead of a security guru.
You've been
so I
demoted.
feel like I have been downgraded by The Economist.
Or demoted.
Or demoted.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
I don't know,
you
right?
can be a guru and a maven both. Why not both?
You know,
I didn't realize there was a hierarchy there.
I didn't either. I thought once you're a guru, you're always a guru. But no, they call me a maven this time.
So my first question for you, Bruce, is what do you mean when you describe democracy as an information system?
So it's an interesting way of thinking about it. And this goes back a few years to work I did with Henry Farrell. And really what we mean is that democracy is a system of figuring out what to do. It's a processing system that takes individual preferences and produces a policy outcome. Like, what should the tax rate be? What should, I don't know, our foreign policy be? And it processes the information of all the people in it. And I mean, there are a lot of ways of looking at democracy, a lot of definitions out there. This one is particularly a, computationally forward definition because I'm using it to think about information flows and artificial intelligence and misinformation flows. So it really makes sense to think of it as a human-powered information processing system.
And when we talk about democracy and AI, what is the definition of AI that you're using?
All right, so we play pretty fast and loose here. I actually looked it up in my book a couple of days ago. Someone asked me this exact same question. And we basically are saying it's the general class of computer things that mimic tasks that were normally done by humans. It's sloppy, there's a lot of rough edges, but it's good enough for, the kind of non-technical discussions I'm trying to have. It's tough though, right? A lot of things out there have been called AI that have been done for years. They used to be just like linear regression. Now they're AI. That term has had meanings throughout, the past bunch of decades that change. And it's just easier to think of them as like computers doing human-like thinking things is probably good enough.
I keep saying it's an umbrella term
It is an
because
umbrella term,
it
right?
means so many different things. But at the moment, most of what it's used for is to sprinkle magic fairy dust on things that are quite ordinary, so that they can market them with greater, panache.
Right. Used to be blockchain did that. Now it's
Yeah,
AI. And you're
yeah,
right. A lot
right.
of things just like aren't really AI. They're being called AI. But some stuff actually is. And what I'm trying to do is think towards the future. So if I think of them as, in a sense, artificial people of varying degrees of skill, it's an easier way to think of them in these human processes, right? How they might change these human processes.
It's not exactly relevant, but have you seen the stories about the 1X Neo robot that
I have
that
not.
Oh, it's hilarious. The Wall Street Journal reviewed it, and it's 5'6" and weighs 66 pounds. And on the website, they try to make it look really and totally safe. It's been taken. All possible murderous impulses have been removed, and it's sort of clothed in this kind of knitted gray material, and all the pictures are with much larger men. But I'm sitting there thinking 5'6" is my height. So now take a short old woman and put it next to this thing and it falls on her. You can't tell me it's not going to do damage. But the funniest part is that it's supposed to do these household chores like get you a
Mhm.
glass of water and open doors for people and I don't know, get things out of the refrigerator and fold laundry and stuff like this. But it isn't yet fully trained to do these
Oh,
things. So
I read
part
about
of
this.
the
So
thing,
they have like remote people in foreign countries
right,
doing.
right, remote operators.
But this is actually, I think, good. But I don't know if it's good societally, but the idea of this lets us think about what it might be like when, if they become more autonomous. One of
Right.
the things I want to do in the book is to have the conversation about AI and democracy now, like before things go weird. So talking about the future, I think, makes sense. So, these sort of halfway measures of almost getting there but not quite, I think give us a lot of insight into what sort of being fully there would look like.
Yeah, as I was reading your book, it was kind of interesting. I spend a lot of time in conversations with people who are almost violently opposed to the proliferation of AI and have many objections to it. And many of those objections are ill-informed. And I keep wondering whether AI is actually going to persist in to the extent that, perhaps some of the visions that you present in your book, some of the ideas that you have in your book can be realized. What do you think about the perception of AI that so many people have, the negative perception?
So I get that all the time. I mean, I'm also involved in the science fiction community, and they are very anti the technology and anything that comes from it. It's the fruit of the poison tree, that nothing good can come of it. And I'll give talks at SF conventions, and people will come up to me afterwards and say, "You're the first person who said any positive things about what AI is doing." And I think that's the caution. I mean, yes, notice the things that are bad, but don't throw out the things that are good. We have lots of stories of amazing things AI is doing to make democracies better around the world. And I think we should do those things. Also, as you know, AI doesn't equal generative AI. When
Mm.
people say nothing good can come of it, they mean chatbots, right? They don't mean the AI that is giving you turn-by-turn directions on Google Maps. They don't mean the AI that's winning chess tournaments or basically won a Nobel Prize last year for protein folding. Right? They don't mean the AI that's reading your chest x-rays. They mean the AI that's saying words. And there's a lot more to AI than that. And a lot of the applications I talk about don't use generative AI at all.
I mean, actually, when I started reading the book, I was afraid it was going to be like reading one of those books from the 1990s when the internet was new and it was going to save democracy.
Oh, you know me better than that.
Yeah, but it was still a relief that it didn't go that way, because an awful lot of things do.
Right. And the goal is not to be utopian about it and not to be doomist about it. What we want to say is AI is a tool, right? It's a power enhancing tool. In the hands of someone who wants better democracy, it's a tool for better democracy. In the hands of an authoritarian, it's tool for better authoritarianism. And that's what it's going to do. And a lot of times people confuse the evils of AI with the evils of the corporations controlling the AI. And I think that is the most important thing that I say to the people who say nothing's good here. I mean, you're right. In a lot of ways, nothing's good there. It's not the technology's fault. It's the fault of the monopolists, right? It's the fault of Silicon Valley. It's the fault of the white male tech billionaires, right? That's where you want to address your solutions.
One type of computing that I've seen lumped in as a threat with AI is quantum computing. And
And I can't figure out why they're lumped together.
yeah,
They're new technologies.
yeah,
I guess, right? And it's like,
it's new and
right,
it's scary. And
and it's scary. I don't know. I do get asked that a lot. I'm not sure quantum computing. I think in some computations, quantum computing will speed up AI, but AI's problem right now isn't performance, so I'm not sure how this helps.
yeah, their fear is the impact on cryptocurrency, bitcoins, and such.
Oh,
And
but if that thing dies, that would be great. I mean, I would be thrilled about that.
we'll
But
all be
I
cheering for
get it
that.
now. Right now, it's all the buzzwords destroying each other, right? Quantum and crypto and AI. One thing I said something new. So this is post the book that I want to mention. In the book, we talk about public AI, the notion of an AI model not controlled by a corporation. And we hypothesize that someday the costs might get down, that a government or an NGO or a university,
Hasn't
might,
Switzerland hasn't
right?
Switzerland done that?
Switzerland did it. The
Yep.
model is called Apertus, came out 2 months ago. And this is a model, government of Switzerland together with ETH Zurich. It is entirely free, entirely open source. More importantly, the training is all open. The training method is all open. It is not beholden to any corporation. There's no profit motive involved. Doesn't use any illegally copyrighted material. Doesn't use any global south poorly paid labor. Its performance is at about the level as the best models last year. So it's not cutting edge, but it's close. Free for everyone to use. And so this is the first example we have of a truly public AI model. It's not going to be the last, right? Other countries can do this. Other groups can do this. The cost of creating these generative models is getting much cheaper. So I'm super excited about that. The other thing that happened, it's about halfway there, is from the government of Singapore. They're creating a model trained on Southeast Asian languages called Sea Lion, but another non-corporate model. I think this is a good development.
Okay, and you had mentioned earlier that there were some places in the world where AIs have been used to make democracy better. Can you give us some examples?
Sure, and just there are lots of stories, and so I'll go through a few. California. There's a group called Cal Matters. And what they do is they collect every public utterance of California elected officials. It's a website, you can go visit it. So every floor speech, every fundraising email, every tweet, everything. Also collect their votes and also collect who funds them. And they make that data available to everybody. But really, it's for journalists. That's the idea. So they recently incorporated AI to look for anomalies. It's a really interesting use case. The AI trolls the data and finds weird things, like, voting records correlated with campaign contributions or whatever. It doesn't write news stories, but what it does is it makes these anomalies available to journalists on a place called Tip Sheet. Journalists can look at it and can follow up on the story if there is one. So there's AI assisting citizen journalism. Next, let's go to Japan. So was a 33-year-old engineer, Ano Takahiro, I think his name was. He's running for governor of Tokyo. He's using an AI avatar, so basically an authorized fake of himself on YouTube, answering questions from constituents over 17 days, like nonstop. Comes in fifth out of 55, out of nowhere. Uh, Kind of a neat story, using AI to connect with voters. The really neat part of the story is a few months ago, he got elected to the upper house of the Japanese, whatever their Congress is, the Diet. And he has this uh, platform that's built on using AI to connect with constituents, to find out what their needs are, and to build a platform. Super neat. That's AI connecting with voters. Three, let's go to Brazil. Brazil is, I didn't know this, a litigious country, even more litigious than the United States. There's a lot of lawsuits there. The courts are backlogged years, and the courts are starting to use AI. Now, not to make decisions, not to be judges, not to be magistrates, but to deal with all of the infrastructure, to assign attorneys to cases and to move paperwork through. Anyway, it's working really well. And the backlog of cases in Brazil is dropping dramatically. You can see the data. The weird thing now is that the attorneys are now also using AI, so they're filing more cases. So we'll see what happens there.
I read about that AI is both giving and taking away.
That's right. Third one, I'm gonna give my last one is from Germany. And they've long had this nonpartisan voting guide. It's called Wolomat. And basically, it's a page you go to. You read about candidates and parties, and you can figure out who you should vote for, right? It's Germany, lots of candidates, lots of parties. They've just recently added a chatbot. So instead of reading dull pages, you can engage in a conversation, and voters like it. So here's an example of AI informing voters. So those are just four things. I could wander around the globe. I have stories from Chile, from Massachusetts, from Canada, from, all over the world of AI being used in ways that improve humans engaging in democracy in various ways.
You know, one of your earlier books, you talk about being a child and being taken to the supermarket and instinctively looking to see how you would rob the supermarket if
Oh, you
you
would remember that story, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would. But the thing is, I was reading this book and I was sitting there thinking, well, actually, a loophole bot would be a great thing. You'd create a legal bot that goes through legislation and finds the loopholes and sells them to companies. And then I started thinking, well, actually, why start there? You would start actually by advising people on wording of legislation that would be very subtly, it'd be hard for a human to spot, but that inserted sort of bits that were very beneficial to your owner. And that's the thing. I mean, you said this earlier, but it's the thing I've been saying for years, which is with all of these systems, the most important question to ask first is who owns it and who's benefiting from it.
So that's right, and that's power. Let me get back to that. I mean, what you said, I wrote about in my previous book. I wrote about it in A Hacker's Mind. And that's also an arms race. So, right, we can imagine AIs finding loopholes in the same way they find vulnerabilities in source code. And there's a lot of work in AIs finding vulnerabilities in source code. But if you think about it, either in source code or in legal code, both sides can use it, right? So the bad guys are using it to find, let's say, tax loopholes, to take advantage of. The good guys are using it during the legislative process to find and close the loopholes before they're made into the law. The really bad guys, you're right, are using it to design loopholes that are hard for the humans to see. But now the really good guys are using AIs to see those hard to find loopholes that the really bad AIs have put in. And you've got a big arms race. Now, this is the same as we have today, unfortunately, because of the humans, not because of the AIs. My guess is that the loophole creators and users win just because they have more money, they have more power, they have more, desire, and legislators often like loopholes. But I think, Wendy, you're 100% right that the way to think about all of these applications is about power. Right? AI is a power enhancing technology. Whose power does it enhance? Which often depends on who owns it, who controls it. Sometimes it depends on who uses it, which is who has access to it and how they have access to it. But, sort of getting back to the original question of what do you say to people who say there's nothing good here? It's not the AI, it's the humans. It's Ted Chiang, science fiction writer, who first said that people's fears of AI are basically misplaced fears of capitalism. I think that's very, very insightful.
Yeah, I recall being part of a design fiction process somebody from the Institute for the Future was doing, and they were working for I think a small city in the East, and part of that design fiction was this kind of background thing that the mayor of the town had been an AI, that the town had made an AI mayor, and that the at the federal level they outlawed using AIs for mayors because they were causing so many problems. So the AI was relegated to the position of a support system for a human mayor, which to me, I mean, I would think that's the way you go. AI works best when it's supporting human endeavor.
And that's right. So does it replace versus support humans? Do you know the AI mayor story? So his name is Victor Miller, and it was last year or the year before. I think it was last year. He's running for mayor of Cheyenne, Wyoming. And he basically campaigns on the platform of elect me and I'll do whatever the AI says. So he wears this thing around his neck, which is a microphone and speaker. The reporters ask him a question. The AI answers. He just stands there. I mean, and so he did not win, thankfully. There was someone running for MP in the UK with the same shtick that, like, I'm just a shell for whatever the AI says. And
The
I
thing
think
is,
there is this
the thing is, the UK
belief, right?
always. Sorry, the thing is, the UK always has some lunatic running.
Right, right.
I mean, the flying monster party or the raving loony party, or there was one, wasn't there one with a garbage bin? I mean,
But there is this segment of belief that the AIs will save everybody, and it's just as farcical as the AIs will kill everybody fantasy. I mean, I'm blanking on the country now has sort of an AI as a minister that I can look it up. Wow.
I think it's Albania.
I think it is Albania. That makes sense, right? It's Albania, where an AI is
It's a
effectively,
it's a minister of procurement or something. It's supposed to eliminate fraud. I
and
think
so,
that's the.
and now we spend a lot of time in this book talking about how AIs can help in procurement, right? Because AI can do things like, look at contracts and study them and find anomalies. And it's like the Cal Matters story, right? It's not going to say, hey, you go to jail. It'll say, hey, look, humans, I found this weird anomaly in this contract. You should probably look at it before you sign it. And right, this is again assisting humans versus replacing humans. It's a great piece of research. This is out of China, weirdly enough, where AI is effectively auditing compliance documents by environmental plans. And what it's doing, it's suggesting plants that the human auditors should go audit. So it's saying, like, rather than audit them randomly, which is what you've been doing, here, look at these. I think they might be fruitful. You can imagine the same thing being done with tax returns. Here, human auditors, this for tax return is weird, and here's what the AI, think is weird. You should look at it. So AI doing the first level of triage, and this is not something humans can't do. We just don't have enough humans.
Well, back in the 2020 elections, people the Trump campaign made a big deal about the machine voting. And now I'm hearing people concerned that AI is going to be taking over the voting machines and sending us over a cliff.
Yeah, I mean that's particular weird conspiracy theories. AI voting is interesting. So, I mean, I talked about Wallomat in Germany. So that's sort of step one, right? Here's an AI that is talking to me and helping me figure out who to vote. I'm going to walk down a path here. Step two is an AI that's trained on me. It's passively watching me over the years. And it says, here's who I think you should vote for. Gives me a slate and explains why. Step three, the AI says, I got it, right? I know who you should vote for. Here's the list, and I'll just vote for you, right? The voting paper came in email, and I'll fill it out, I'll send it in, I'll do the stuff. Great. Step four, it does that for everybody. Step five, it says,
Is
wait,
Isaac
stop. We don't even have an election. I know
Step
everyone's going to
five is
vote,
Isaac Asimov's short story.
right? But no, I'm going to keep going, right? So I just know who's going to win. So we don't even have to run the election. Here's who the winners are. Step six is we don't even need legislators. I know what the policy should be. Let me just do it. Right now, that's pretty abhorrent. This seems okay. It's hard to know where along that path it goes bad. I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's something that I think people who study elections think about in voting. I think the real issue here is that voting is more than figuring out what to do, right? If voting was getting the right answer, then sure, let the AI do it. But our political preferences aren't just like lying on the ground waiting to be discovered. They're created through the process of democracy. So the act of participating is equally important to the result of the participation. And then thirdly, the knowledge that we have agency and we are in charge is also important. So those three things mean you need to preserve the humans doing the voting and the deciding and the AI assisting.
When I look at government, I see like two things. Well, there's a lot of things going on, but mainly two things. There's the management side of it, the side of making decisions and managing, doing governance, basically. And then there's the power part of it,
Right.
which is when you are in government, there's the potential to take power, whatever that might mean or represent. And I think on the side of it that I've been really interested in is the decision part, the part about how you decide what government should be doing.
That's right.
And it's very hard to have the right expertise to make all those decisions in all areas. And to me, it seems like one of the biggest roles for AI would be to, as it like a decision support system for figuring out what should we really do here, you know?
All right, so I'll give two stories, one a little bit older. AI is trying to write legislation. Now we could say yikes, but the alternative is that lobbyists write legislation because the legislators don't have the expertise, as like you said. And it's always important when you think about AI in any application, it's always compared to what, right? Compared to lobbyists, AI is probably better. Like AI note takers in community local government meetings, I prefer human journalists, but Facebook destroyed all the human journalists. So it's better than nothing. So this is a story from Switzerland. It's also very new. They're I can't tell if they're piloting it or just thinking about it. But the notion is something they call vote twice. So the idea is that first the AI simulates the electorate and conducts the vote. And this is not on a person, this is on an issue. So what should we do? So the AI makes its best guess of what the humans would decide they should do. That result is published. And then there's a second election where the humans vote on the issue and they get to decide with the knowledge of what the AI suggested. All right, do we like that or not? I'm not sure.
It sounds good on the face of it,
Yeah, but it's weird, right?
but what
I
if
thought
the
you were,
AI is not? I mean, a lot depends on how the AI is trained. AIs
Yeah,
can
okay,
make bad decisions
but
too.
let's assume it does a good job,
but
right?
see, I thought you were going to say was they ran the election with the AI, and then separately they ran it with the humans, and they compared it to see whether the
Nah,
AI
they
actually
purposely
did.
do it in sequence,
Yeah, yeah.
right? And let's assume the AI does a good job, right? Because if it doesn't do a good job, it's a stupid system. So let's assume that it functions as advertised. Do we like that idea?
Do you
Well, I
remember?
can think of another way to do it, which is to basically give them a way to sort of give citizens a way to query the AI about the proposed legislation.
Right. I mean, that's one way.
Uh, yeah.
Or Wendy's way, have two elections simultaneously, keep them secret from each other, and then compare the two.
Do you remember the Isaac Asimov story I was thinking of? I think it was when polling was coming in or something. And
I
so
do.
the idea was that they selected one person.
Right. The
The
average voter.
extrapolation, yeah, sampling had advanced to such a stage that they only needed one voter in order to say how the election. So the story was about the one guy in this particular election
Right.
who
And of
scored.
course, the problem is that it's very much a quantum-like situation
Yeah,
that once you are that voter, you are no longer that voter, right?
right. I
The
mean,
knowledge of being that voter has now perturbed your state so that you're no
right.
longer the average voter.
Right. And it's sort of an absurd idea anyway, because sampling is never going to get to a point where you only need one data point, but it was still interesting to think about.
Is that story called Franchise?
Yeah, I think it might be.
That sounds right.
Okay.
But yes, I mean,
Yeah.
it's been popping up recently in a bunch of different areas. Nicely done getting the name.
So this is very science fictiony. I mean, just kind of the idea of using AI to support democracy. Um,
Yeah, it depends on what. So here, want to give one more example. I have lots of examples. This is from Massachusetts. This is my home state. So there's a platform called Maple, the Massachusetts something platform for legislative engagement. And what it does is it enables citizens to advocate for pieces of legislation. Something like 6,000 bills are introduced in the Massachusetts State House every year. It's a crazy system from the 1500s, just barely functions. And if you're like, a rich white guy, it is easy to submit legislative testimony. If you're not, it's hard. So what the system does, you can query it about bills that you care about. It'll summarize them for you. That's part of the AI. It will help you submit testimony, and it will do the work to get the testimony submitted. So a really nice system, like uses AI here and there to help Massachusetts citizens advocate in the state democracy for the things they care about easily.
I just wonder whether we're going to have a democracy, whether we're going to be able to use this stuff because
I get
we're
it.
sort of
So,
in a patrimonial system now, right?
I mean, I get it. I mean, we are definitely falling into an authoritarian hellhole. And unfortunately, I mean, we wrote the book mostly last year. It was not really written for this administration. Uh, I mean, what the book says is if you want democracy, AI can help. And here's how, right? It doesn't say if you're losing democracy, right? It's not a book about how AI will save democracy from the authoritarians. It's not a book about how to resist authoritarian uses of democracy. It's a book about, a functioning democracy and how AI can help. I keep thinking of examples. So I want to give an example from Chile. So in Chile, they have a weird rule about pending legislation that you have to also write how it affects existing legislation. So this is a requirement for all bills going through the Chilean legislator. That is hard to do, and it never gets done well. They are using AI to help in that. And AI turns out to be really good at figuring out legal interactions. It's surprisingly good. I'm impressed when they do in the United States. So this is another example of doing something that humans can do. It's not magic. It's not superhuman. Just they don't have enough humans, so it never gets done. And it's important and valuable, and now AI is doing it.
Yeah, the thing is, you do, if the history of the internet is any guide, however good AI becomes at assisting democracy, it's likely to become better at assisting authoritarianism.
So this is who controls it. So this is why,
Yeah,
to me, the Swiss model is so important. If
right.
the AIs are controlled by Meta and Google and Apple and OpenAI and Anthropic, then yes, I think you're right. Then we get the same monopoly, centralization, and shitification, that we've gotten on the internet, on social media. If, as it might turn out, that like you can make your own AI model on your computer, which might be true in a year, then we don't have that. Then it's more democratizing kind of like email and not like Facebook Messenger. So don't
Mhm.
know. I have the same worry you do. It's not, but it's not an AI worry. It's a US tech policy, monopolies, capitalism sucks worry.
Yeah, the social media mavens are just really thrilled by AI. The
I know,
AI
right?
slop that has taken over social media. I just run screaming away from the screen when I encounter, and it's hard to tell the difference between real media and slopped media that came in from somebody's AI, nightmare.
It's I think we're seeing the first time people moving away from social media because of that. Moving into private chat groups on Discord or Telegram or WhatsApp. That is a better place for them to be than on Facebook because of this. I think it's interesting to watch. You're right, AI generated content is getting really good and it's really persuasive. It's hard for us to tell the difference in many cases. Sometimes it's still easy. Right? I mean, AI images still cannot eat spaghetti worth a damn. I think that's going to be the sort of the last hurdle of AI video. But it's going to be interesting to watch as what used to be humans arguing with humans, which even then wasn't real. Right. I mean, John, you and I are on a mailing list where someone posted an article about a newspaper that realized that of its tens of thousands of readers, like 200 were the only ones who were commenting on the news articles. So what everyone thought was the community discussing it were like a bunch of loud people with nothing else to do, right? Social media has never been representative of us. We thought it was, but it wasn't. And you're right, now it's going to be all AIs arguing with AIs. And the sooner people realize that, I think the better everyone will be.
I gotta say, I never thought social media was representative, but I was, I mean, I was kind of in it from the beginning, and it was kind of clear what it was becoming over time. Um, eh,
And we're all
I,
olds here, right? We're old people.
yeah,
We're not social media people.
I reject that hypothesis.
what they
I,
were old or
I've never been on social media, which makes me a freak, but highly productive.
Well, I used to love Twitter. I really did. And I spent, I don't know, signed up there in 2008. I never cared much for Facebook. But I mean, a lot of what you're talking about is represented well on the Fediverse, where, things like Mastodon and
Right.
so on, where very much like Usenet used to be, people have their own servers and they have a fair bit of control over what material comes their way. And, I find a lot of usefulness there.
Yeah, and it's sort of interesting to watch. Again, this is will the technology be centralizing or distributive? I have a section in the book I talk about AIs and attorneys, and it turns out there's a dozens of AI startups in the legal field because there's an enormous amount of money in a lot of these litigations. So AIs for analyzing discovery documents, for drafting briefs, for watching juror facial expressions to figure out what they're thinking. I mean, all these companies are being created. And so the overall question to me is, does the AI make the best attorneys even better? Right? Does it further concentrate power? That'd be bad. Or on the other hand, does it make the average attorney better? Which to me would increase access to justice, would be a good thing. We don't know
See,
the
I have a
answer
third
yet.
question. See, I have a different question, which is, does it remove the possibility for junior lawyers to gain the
That's a
experience they
separate
gain?
question, and that's true for pretty much all apprentice-based professions, like doctors, lawyers, architects, financial advisors. I mean, all those professions where you're an apprentice and you work your way up, right? If AI removes even a third of the entry-level slots in any of these types of companies, where do the senior partners come from? It's a really good question. None of those industries have any idea, and I think it's going to hit them really hard.
what I kept thinking about, especially since we just had this solar storm, is we're like one electromagnetic pulse away from complete loss of all of this stuff. And I wonder what we do when it all just sort of disappears.
So I it was I forget, some radio program had me on to talk about what would happen if the internet disappeared. And it's fanciful. I don't think it's going to happen, but you're right. We're so dependent on it. But what would happen if grocery stores disappeared? There's quite a lot. We are a very fragile society. And I mean, again, this is a capitalism sucks story, that the systematic removal of all redundancies from the system of the past few decades means we are brittle, that, small catastrophes get larger because there's like, a 2 day supply of food at the grocery store and no more. And if you lose power or communications or transportation, right? And we've seen things. We've seen New Orleans, remember Hurricane Sandy in parts of New York. So we see this on a small scale. But yes, I mean, I don't want to think about what would happen to us if our infrastructure dies in any way. We would not be well off.
Yeah, all of Texas had a collapsed power grid like 3 years ago. Power grid, I mean, and that was bad. I mean, it was really bad. A lot of people didn't have power. Of course, it was very cold. People were freezing to death. But what was even worse was that in some places, like here in Austin specifically, there was no water. The
Right.
water
Right, right,
systems
because water needs
stopped.
power.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
So
And your phone lasts for 8 hours and then it's dead. Yeah, right. So many things, and we learned pieces of it. Remember the Cloudflare outage, CrowdStrike outage, from about 2 years ago, last year, right? Who would have guessed that it would ground Delta Airlines? I mean, you couldn't have predicted that on a bet.
yeah, I never would
Either the,
have. But I just wonder if we're setting ourselves up by creating more and more dependence on technologies that you've got to plug in, you know?
I think we are, but that's not an AI issue. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
not,
true.
and the
That's not.
dependencies are okay. It's that there's no fail safe, there's no fallback. And again, this is capitalism, right? This is because any redundancies are considered wasteful and removed in the name of profits. That's
Right.
the problem. That is not a tech issue. That is very much a social issue.
That's true. And AI is just a way to exploit
Right.
data.
AI just is a way to do that. More again, AI increases power. If you, as a powerful person, want to make your system more profitable, therefore more brittle, it could help.
The big
Well,
problem in Texas has revolved around AI and cryptocurrency production, sucking up a large amount of the electrical grid, and it's a worldwide problem, from what I
Yeah,
can read.
I think it is. I think it's something that's going away. The power usage will go down, just like the power usage for search went down. A lot of the AI is forced upon people. I mean, every time you do a Google search, AI is triggered. You didn't ask for it. You probably don't want it. A lot of the AI usage numbers are inflated because of AI that's forced on people who don't ask for it. I think it's really important to realize. Once you remove that, you get a lot less energy use,
Well, the great thing is if they start charging for it, it'll be a double win when we say no.
which is why they'll charge for it in ways that will be sneaky. I mean, right now, I mean, we know it's an enormous bubble. The companies are just surviving, lending money to each other. No route for profitability. It reminds me a lot like the overbuilding of the internet backbone in the early 2000s. I think it's going to be an enormous crash, and that'll be right, the data centers, the power plants they're building, all that stuff. It's going to be redundant. It's going to be useless. It'll be sold for pennies on the dollar. It'll
So
be a
you're
bad
saying they're
disaster.
building too much capacity, more capacity than they can actually derive value from?
I think they are. I mean, right? The use cases aren't for these big models. My guess is that in the end, you don't want a massive model like ChatGPT. You want a small model that's a good travel agent, right? Or a
Well,
good financial advisor, or a
well, that's what
good novelist, and making those special use smaller models will be cheaper, will be easier, will use less power. they'll run on your phone. I mean, right now, I know someone who has DeepSeek running on his phone.
Well, this is what the stochastic parrots paper was about 3 years ago. Timnit Gebru and Emily Bender and Margaret Mitchell and the fourth one whose name I can never remember. That was exactly what they wrote about, and that was how they got let go by Google.
We're
Was
let go
they were
equals
saying,
fired, by the way. Let's call it what it is.
okay, yeah, fired is a good word. Yeah, but that's what you're talking about, is that they were saying that that was the way forward.
Yeah, and my guess is that's what we want, right? And if you're a company that does travel, you want to be a travel agent. You don't care what it does with anything else.
Are there
And
any travel agents anymore?
there are travel advisors. Yes, there are corporate travel agents. I know it is a profession that died because of the internet, but you can imagine it coming back, right? As a travel advisor. When you hear about personal agents, the idea that you have a personal agent, the example I'm always given is travel. And I would like that, right? I was in Strasbourg last week for the World Forum on Democracy. Tell me the good restaurants. Make a reservation for me. I'm busy. Just, you know what I like. Just do it. If you're rich, you have a human who can do that for you.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Hinton said the other day, uh, somebody mentioned this, I think it was in a Forbes interview, that the only way that AI can be profitable is by replacing workers with AI, basically.
Yeah. Cory Doctorow makes the point, it's a very good one, that AI basically still can't do your job, but what AI can do is convince your boss that it can do your job. And
That's
that's
what
where
I
the
was
harm is,
thinking.
right? That's where the harm happens, not when the AI does your job, when your
And
boss thinks the AI can do your job.
right, and then he hires you back for less money to edit what the AI did.
Right. And thereby also training the next AI to do better. Yeah, it's a bad spiral, and it's a lot I mean, this is way beyond what I study, how to think about how employment looks in a world where many jobs no longer exist. Our society has tied so much of our being to employment. Right? In the United States, we see that with healthcare. I mean, basically,
Yeah.
the way I tell the story is that in Europe, people got health care through the political process. So it became part of your right as a citizen. In the United States, people got health care through collective bargaining. So it became part of your right as an employee. And that worked great. They both work just as well until we started decoupling people from employer. And now the US system tying your health care to your job fails catastrophically. So,
Yeah.
yes, a lot of things are going to fail catastrophically because they are traditionally tied to your job, and jobs will go away, and jobs will become, freelance, like, Uber drivers that sort of, you're an employee but not an employee, so I can evade all the regulations on employees. All of these things are going to exacerbate this problem.
We haven't talked too much about AI in politics as opposed to government or governance. I'm wondering if you're aware of anything that the local, like U.S. political parties are using AI for.
So both parties are, and I know of several startups that are working with this party or the other party. There's AIs that link candidates to donors. Donor Atlas is one you can look up. Quiller AI is an AI company that helps local people run for office, filling out paperwork, coming up with messaging. When you think about AI in politics, think less about Congress and senator, think city council. There's no staff, there's no budget, there's no expertise, right? And AI used to help people run for office makes that capability more accessible. Really nice story. AI and political polling, a lot of work there. Most of that is not, the companies aren't primarily political because the real money is in market research, but simulating humans. I mean, on the downside, it's not a real human. On the upside, you can ask it literally a million questions. So there are companies that are working on using people and AI together to figure out opinion. So a bunch of work being done there. I mentioned authorized AI avatars. We've seen, it's interesting to think about, that AIs have been used as a stand-in in debates when a candidate refuses to debate. It's not a fake, right? Everyone knows it's an AI, and the AI is legitimately trained. So it's a really interesting use case that I have mixed feelings about. Uh, AI is being used as campaign avatars. Charmaine Daniels in Pennsylvania had an AI robocaller. So instead of just getting a recorded message, you were able to converse with an AI. I mentioned the Japanese legislator who used an AI avatar. So we're seeing this sort of alternate mode of campaigning show up, and then lots of supporting systems to help candidates run for office. They often are partied. So they'll work for either Republicans or for Democrats. There's one I know of that specifically targets non-partied offices, like sheriff or, I don't know, uh, school board, right? But they're nonpartisan offices that they help those people in particular.
Well, I'm a big fan of music, and I've been involved in musical enterprises over the years. And I was horrified by the coming of the AI musicians and AI singers. I'm sure Wendy is not threatened by that. They won't have any AI folk singers, will they, Wendy?
No, there's just not enough money in folk music to bother with us.
There certainly is. And so I want to recommend something that was really good. So this is a TED Talk. His name is Dustin Ballard, and he is a musician that uses AI in a creative way. And his argument is like, for me, for a musician, for a creative person, that AI is a tool, just like computer art was a tool, just like a synthesizer is a tool, just like any other of these tools are tools. They allow me, an artist, to be creative in ways I couldn't otherwise. Now, I found that talk really interesting. I recommend it to you.
It sounds pretty fascinating. I think there are a number of artists, certainly in film, they've been using AI a lot. One of the things
I mean,
that
movies these days, I mean, like it's half people and half CGI, right? You, you can't, a
You may be
superhero movie, you
watching,
can't tell what's real.
you might be watching the wrong movies.
This is just theory. I don't watch any movies. But actually, I did happen to be at a friend's house. He's watching some Spider-Man movie. I'm not making this up. It's the one where the Staten Island Ferry gets cut in half. That's the scene I saw. And I'm looking at it, and I asked the person who's watching it, is this a real movie or is this animated? Because I can't tell. And what he
Well,
said is all the scenes are both.
yeah, I mean, but you're talking about CGI, not AI.
Yeah, but AI is being used in CGI to make the things, right? Here are 1,000 orcs, animate them all. I mean, that's all AI.
Yeah, but that's been growing slowly for a long time. You go back to the
Right.
1992 and the Liquid Metal Man and Terminator 2. I mean, that was kind of the beginning
And
of
this gets
CGI.
back to the things that are not AI suddenly being called AI.
Well, there was a guy who used to work with Nick Bostrom. His name was Anders Sandberg, I think, who said something about we only call it AI when it doesn't work. When it works,
That
we
is a
call it
common
automation.
from, I remember that from the 80s, from the 70s,
Mhm.
right? I mean, and that was back when, if it worked, it obviously wasn't AI.
Right. Well, I think
Now we
that,
call it AI regardless whether it works or not.
yeah, but that will pass.
I think so. I think you're right. I think we're in the marketing hype bubble right
Right.
now.
Exactly.
100%.
I've actually wondered whether CGI is not AI. I mean, so much of what, like people complain, among other things, about deep fakes, which are basically CGI, right?
Right.
And is that produced by an AI or
I
is
don't
it
know.
just produced by a very sophisticated?
My advice is not to get bogged down in definitions. I mean, we could discuss that, but exactly where the line is, it doesn't really matter. It's going to
This
move.
is this is where
Talk
we
about
started the
trends.
conversation.
Sorry?
This is where we started the
I
conversation.
think this is. We come
What
full
is
circle, which is
AI?
which is good because it's about out of time.
Well, the a big issue in Hollywood these days are there are agencies seeking people who are voice actors and dramatic actors to come in and basically be, sampled, I guess is the way they would term it, and they would be turned into an artificial version of that voice actor. They would no longer need to have them in. They can just turn this thing on and it'll render that person digitally.
And this is, Wendy said this in the beginning, that robots are being trained by humans, which are also going to train the next version of the robot not to need the human. I mean, we are definitely being hired to make ourselves obsolete. This feels like a bad long-term plan, but
There was a
it's a
piece in the
divide and
LA
conquer
Times.
strategy.
There was a piece in the LA Times just this week about people being they're being assigned things like fold a shirt 200 times and send in these videos for a client, and they have to do everything very precisely so the robot can learn from it.
Right, it's to train AIs.
That's always the
Quite open
trick is, I mean, when you talk about replacing jobs with AIs or robots or whatever, the question is always like, what is it? What does that mean for the people who are no longer working? I mean, people would say, "Oh, you'll no longer have to work. You'll just be able to live a sort of ideal life, doing whatever creative thing you want to, because work won't be required anymore." But how do you fund that?
Well, right.
Where do you get your money?
If you fund that, maybe that's a good thing. I mean, that's kind of the Star Trek utopia, right? That people are doing things because they want to. But yes, you need some alternate mechanism other than a job to make people feel like they're part of society. And we don't have the answer. I mean, Andrew Yang, for all of his weirdness, at least he brought the notion of UBI into the public consciousness. I don't know if it's the right idea, but it's the kind of thing we should be talking about.
I have a whole rant that I can get into about how work evolved from slavery, but we don't really have time for that. But I do think, I mean, it would be great if people didn't have to do the jobs that somebody makes them do, including some terrible, boring thing where you're standing, juggling widgets all day, and could do something that they felt was important to them and work with their creativity. But that seems very utopian right now, and that may be partly because we've never known anything else.
Right.
Yeah. So I think we've reached the end of the hour, Bruce. Do you have any final statements?
I do not. This has been a fun conversation.
It has.
I like you people, which made it even more fun. Thanks for having me on.
Well, now that we have your voice, we can just sample it and have you on all the time.
That's right. Right. So I tried to do that. I actually created a Bruce bot. I fed it all of my writings, all my books, all my essays. It only did okay. It was good at saying things about topics I'd written about. I wanted it to be able to say Brucey things about new topics, and it couldn't do that.
So basically you wanted it to write your next book for you.
I want to know if it could. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it, but I wanted to test, is it possible? So last year when I did it, it wasn't possible yet. I should try again. I'm sure the technology's gotten better.
As long as we're talking about generative AI, which is predicting the next word based on math and statistics, I think it's very unlikely.
I agree. No. I think it'll happen. I actually do think it'll happen. But, we don't know. The researchers debate whether this will get better or whether it reach a plateau. I don't think we know.
I want to be sure and mention that the name of your book is Rewiring Democracy, How AI Will Transform Our Politics, Government, and Citizenship.
With a cool picture of a digitized Athena on the cover.
Very, very cool. Well, thanks, Bruce. Thanks so much for joining us.
You can stay in touch with Plutopia at plutopia.io. On Facebook, look for @Plutopia News. On Twitter, it's @Plutopia. This is the Plutopia News Network, 20 minutes into the future.